on a whole variety of issues, and I can tell you that the business community is as frustrated as you are. So I'm having a conversation with a lady the other day, and she asked me if I could reach out to the DEP for her. And she said, yeah, I've been working on this issue for 10 years with the DEP. So as much as all of us are sitting here and abhorring the whole idea of what we're going to do planning, we've got to have a framework to get things done in this state. And I can tell you, I talk to businesses every day who have the opportunity to go to North Carolina and go to a lot of places. States are targeting specific areas for business growth. States are putting their dollars into specific areas to encourage business. And we in New Jersey continue to get our lunch eaten by these states. So we've got to have some framework, some planning, and at the end of the day, businesses want to have predictability. How long is it going to take me to get through this process? If I've got to deal with 6 state agencies, are they actually going to be working together, or are they going to be working counter to one another? So at the end of the day, if you think you like what we got today, I suggest to you, you probably should take a look at what we got today, because it's chaos. We're losing jobs every day. We don't have our act together. There's more heavy-handedness from Trenton today than there ever was. And at least this plan has some things, I think, that are going to give you more control at the local level in terms of what kind of businesses you're going to have. We're going to have some idea in terms of how we want to encourage business and get people working together. So I'm sensitive to the frustration out there, but at the same time, you don't want to have what we have today into the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Gary's up. Rosalie Sabatino is up after Gary.
Good evening. My name is Gary Gemian. I'm a resident of Lincoln Park, New Jersey, and a councilman there. I've lived in this state for more than a half a century, so I guess if you're counting, that makes me 50-something. I've been a taxpayer in my community for 30 years. And I'm here to comment on behalf of my constituents about this plan, a major concern of mine. I've heard mentioned here that advocates of this plan and drafters of the plan, who I know are represented here this evening, are interested in working with local municipalities and communities. And I've got to tell you, as a councilman in a local community, entrusted with the fiduciary responsibility of budgets and taxes and things of that nature, I wouldn't know what to do with this document. I wouldn't know how to execute it at the local level. It is fraught with ambiguity, as I said earlier. There's nothing in this document that addresses what a development/redevelopment plan of a state should start with, and that is areas of development that are in need of dire emergency attention, such as our communities along river basins who are fraught with repeated flooding that is costing those communities significant tax dollars. And all those communities are doing now are looking to state and federal levels for funding because they can't cut it themselves without raising taxes. And we do not want to raise taxes to pay for things that we believe can be helpful at the state and even federal level to rectify this situation. And I'm speaking specifically of the Passaic River Basin and the Pompton River Basin, just to use 2 examples in our community, in the state, which are very well documented areas. The Army Corps of Engineers for decades, as way back as 1939, has postulated solutions to mitigate flood issues along the Passaic River and Pompton River basins, and these initiative recommendations have gone unacted upon, unfunded, because no one community can do it alone. We need a collaborative effort along those river basins. And so a plan of this nature is needed, but it's needed with the right teeth in it and the right concrete solutions that local communities such as mine that I represent can act upon and want to make our community a better place. So we look to the state for help and guidance. But if you're going to give us this kind of an ambiguous document that is coming out of left field, has its roots in these initiatives that have been mentioned earlier in the evening, such as Agenda 21 and global sustainability initiatives, and doesn't have specifics that address our state needs at the community level, I don't think this is going to meet with approval at the local grassroots level. I, as a councilman representing my community, if this document, I was asked to vote for it in its present form, I would vote no for it. I just don't think it is in the best interest of our community to have such a nebulous document identified as a quote-unquote development or redevelopment plan. It doesn't provide the kind of guidance that you intended it to provide to local communities. So it can benefit by substantial redrafting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. Rosalie is up next, followed by Nancy Schauger, S-H-A-U-G-E-R, is after.
Okay.
I'm from Wayne, New Jersey, and Passaic County is fighting ICLEI at the moment. We're talking to our planning board, and I have to tell you, what this document taught me is that the state of New Jersey is vague, and they would like to keep things ambiguous and vague, so that we really don't understand that they do want land grabs within the state. A couple of things were very disturbing. There's a lot about social goals, which to me smacks of mandated social engineering. Incentivize, somebody mentioned this. That suggests allocation of resources to reward those communities that implement the plan. It also talks about setting forth coordinated and integrated approach with state agencies regarding land use and development. I want to know where the authority is for these existing laws. There's quite a bit in here that's pretty frightening. It talks about promoting development and redevelopment to create compact and livable communities. I guess they're going to decide where we live. They're talking about allocation of resources, of smart growth communities. So again, to me, this is pretty frightening stuff. And I'm hoping that everybody in this room remembers when we have to go and vote, and when we see unelected officials basically deciding how we're going to live. We've given way too much power to environmental groups and the EPA, and the state can basically spin it however they want to spin it. But quite honestly, as voters and taxpayers, we have to remember they're using our money. And we really can't let this happen. So I hope all of you remember this when election time comes. And I hope all of you visit your freeholders and your planning boards to stop this insanity. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Nancy's up, followed by Alyssa Warren.
Hi, I'm Nancy. Can you hear me? Yeah, you can hear me. I'm a resident currently of Wayne. I'm a Jersey girl, born and bred. I lived in West Milford for 20 years, sorry. Sold real estate there for 10 years, so I have a little bit of experience up in the woods and a little in the city. I planned on speaking, I put my name in. The bulk of what I wanted to say, I said earlier, because I learned what the process was in Newark, and I was appalled at how little time was allotted to actually getting answers from the people who seem to be running the show, and the rest of it's just for us to give comments, and that just didn't set well with me. Particularly in light of the fact that, if I understand the process correctly, we're all going to give comments, and they're going to go into a recorder and a black hole somewhere, and yes, they're going to maybe make some changes, but and we encountered a similar thing with a county plan that our group is working on. Kind of getting involved at our county level with a plan, but it was a similar process where they're all telling us, okay, you're going to have opportunity for input, and then we're going to take the plan into the back room and we're going to rework it, but there was never a step in the rest of their outline of the process for where the citizens would then get to review what happened at that point. What was the new plan? What was the revision? At that point in this other process at the county level, it was simply the planning department was going to present the new plan to the planning board right before it got adopted. And so we're still working on that there. So I'm seeing a similar process here, unless I get corrected somewhere, but I don't feel so far I've been corrected in that, in that is the process. So I didn't really have any specific comments because when I hear other people speak, either here or I attended my only other meeting that I attended on this plan was on Thursday in Newark. And the more I sat in the audience, and maybe this happened to some of you now, I just felt overwhelmed. There were so many things that I felt I could, pipe up and say, yeah, I agree, what about that? So I've tried to cull it down because everybody tells me I talk too much anyway. So I might be a little over the place, but I'm just trying to make some further comments on the different things I've heard. First of all, as I said, I'm a resident. I'm not being paid to be here. And I didn't say that to get the applause, but I think the applause shows that you know what I mean by that. There are some people who just have a job, and hey, we need some employees. We need some state employees. I'll grant you that. I don't think we need as many as we have, and that's kind of a separate issue. But my point is, I don't know if their comments should weigh equally with the citizens. So, and I'm not saying they're not important. I didn't go to college I'm sorry, I should say, they go to college and they take training and they learn the planning process because that's who we want as taxpayers, that's who we want to hire for those jobs. So they have knowledge, they have experience. I don't want to diss any of that. I think there's a place for it. But as you probably, some of you are feeling, that the first 10 speakers all, I don't want to say they wore suits, and I didn't dress up. But I felt, and I'm sure some of you felt it, that they were professionals in the field, and as they've introduced themselves, that turns out to be the case. So my suggestion is not to count their comments, but maybe to have them separate. When you take these comments, and if it's being recorded and the person says, I'm so-and-so from the planning department, well, let's put that comment over here, and then maybe keep the citizens' comments separate. Now, I know logistically you may not do that, but I think conceptually it's an important point to make that I'm not being paid, a lot of the speakers here are not being paid, yet this plan does affect us, and particularly in our pocketbooks. Yep. It's also job security for some of them. If we have to have more and more levels of planning, it just keeps your job going. I guess two issues I guess I have, if I want to put them into not vague, general categories. One is language, so I can maybe dispense with that quicker than the other one, because the second one is process. And the language, another speaker brought this up. She spoke more eloquently on it than I did, or rather than I was going to the other evening, so I did not speak on it. But I think it bears repeating that there's a lot of terminology in here that is just vague. Adaptive decision making, I don't know what that is. I mean, it might be by consensus, which is a buzzword for a lot of people. That's a bad thing, by the way. Okay, I'm wrapping up. Targeted economic growth, we don't know what that is. Appropriate growth. I want to point out a couple of things, specifically by page number in the plan, if you ever do get to read it. Page 10, they talk about funding. That was a big issue at the other meeting, and I haven't had time to really review this enough. In order for New Jersey to capitalize on these strengths and assets, a plan must be in place to identify and orchestrate the players and programs whose authority, funding, and talents must be leveraged. But they don't say how that funding, and remember, it's your taxpayer dollars that are going to be leveraged somewhere. On page 11, they talk about sprawl. Sprawl, to me, is just a buzzword. If you Google sprawl, what you're going to come up with is groups like Nature Conservancy and all these other environmental groups who don't like sprawl. Well, maybe none of us like sprawl, but what that means is your rural areas, if you want to put a Target in your or a Walmart in your community, you should have control at the local level to be able to do that. My perception of this plan is that that's not where they're going with this. And I guess the last thing I'll say, I'll get off the idea of looking at the different pages. As far as process goes, in here it mentions advocacy groups, and I asked briefly in the question and answer system if they could name them, and Mr. Kennedy said it's in the chart. So I looked in here, and there is a chart that was on page 13, but then I realized the chart itself was rather vague. It would list the town councils and, or the local governments, and then groups such as planners or builders, and it didn't give me specifics. So he told me that I could send him an email, and he was going to give me that information. My point with this is, why isn't that easier to get? A citizen has to come and go to 2 meetings before you even fully understand the process, just to get a little piece of who else is involved in making this whole plan, because it's certainly not the citizens. Thank you very much.
Alyssa Gorin. Up next is Pyotr. I'm going to butcher this. I apologize in advance. Turewicz. He's up next.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present comments on the draft plan. My name is Lisa Gorin, and I'm a planner at PlanSmart New Jersey, a statewide independent nonprofit planning and research organization with over 40 years commitment to improving the quality of community life through the advancement of sound land use planning and regional cooperation. Excuse me. The new state strategic plan is a critical step in ensuring long-term prosperity for New Jersey and continued commitment to foster high quality of life here in New Jersey. PlanSmart supports the state planning process, and I would like to especially emphasize the importance of planning in New Jersey. Planning enables civic leaders, businesses, and citizens to play a meaningful role in their communities. Planning helps find the right balance of development, services, environmental protection, and innovative change. Planning is based on analysis of data and identification of goals. In New Jersey, the data paints sort of a precarious position. We're declining in capturing the national market share of job growth. The residents in New Jersey have the 3rd longest commutes in the nation, despite being a relatively small state. New Jersey ranks as the 4th most expensive state in the nation for rental housing, and also has the highest tax burden in the nation. We thank the state for working on these issues and focusing the state plan to address some of these challenges we're facing. The state plan recognizes the key role that our economy has to play in planning. It introduces the concept of industry clusters for New Jersey, which PlanSmart has long advocated. The plan proposes criteria-based system to identify where growth should occur and where conservation should take place. It requires the development of state agency functional plans, a key provision that PlanSmart has long promoted. And it focuses on leadership and vision as opposed to management. It ensures state agency coordination. And we thank you for your leadership in these areas and for your thoughtful inclusion of these key principles. We do have some suggestions to further develop the plan as you move forward. The state strategic plan, as written, is an important policy document. The identification and agreement upon criteria that guides where growth is encouraged and where it is discouraged is essential to making this a functional, not just aspirational plan. Elaboration on the criteria and the ability to geographically identify areas for growth and preservation is critical. This transparency is essential to the development of a meaningful state plan. As the state fosters priority investment areas and growth industry clusters, attention must be paid to the location of housing near jobs. We will not succeed at promoting economic development, reducing traffic congestion, and maintaining livable communities if we don't also institute a plan to allow diverse housing types and sufficient housing stock near jobs. The state should play a larger role in fostering connections between housing and employment connections. An important key to implementation is understanding New Jersey's infrastructure needs into the future, including utilities, broadband, transportation. We support the state plan's desire to repair and upgrade our existing infrastructure and foster redevelopment as well as compact new development. As the next step, we recommend using the infrastructure needs assessment as a vehicle to analyze in greater detail New Jersey's future infrastructure investment needs in all of its regions. The plan should also provide for the vertical integration of local and community plans and the state plan so that local, county, regional plans are consistent with the state plan. In terms of regionalization, we believe that New Jersey's counties and regional planning entities are entitled to a broader role in implementing the state strategic plan. It would make sense to give them both more planning authority and capacity building support so that they can effectively foster regional economic development and facilitate mixed-use compact communities in their region. The State Strategic Plan Steering Committee is a much-needed vehicle to spur interagency coordination, communication, and dispute resolution. The steering committee should also play a broader role in ensuring that state agency policies, regulations, and investments align before they are adopted. Thank you for the opportunity to comment, and we look forward to working with you in the future, and we'll submit written comments.
Thank you, Lisa. After this gentleman, I think it's P-I-O-T-R.